Lu Yin traveled through the stars and devoured the sky, but his own qualifications were extremely mediocre, and he was only a senior student in the martial arts school until the age of 29. Just when Lu Yin was feeling disheartened and planning to get married and have children to live an ordinary life, she realized that her way of becoming stronger seemed a bit different. P.S. Swallow fans and try new themes. Keywords of the novel. Swallowing the Starry Sky. Rising from getting married without a pop-up window, swallowing the starry sky. Rising from getting married. Download the full text, Swallowing the Starry Sky. Rising from getting married. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. 30 years in Hedong, don't deceive middle-aged and poor people. You are listening at novel full.audio. Chapter 1. 30 years in Hedong, don't deceive middle-aged and poor people. Jiangnan Bay City. Yangzhou City. Yin District Extreme Martial Arts School. Student Lu Yin, with a strength of 752 kilograms and a speed of 19 meters per second, has a normal neural response speed. The result of this assessment is for advanced students. The bald man wearing a black practice suit held a table in his hand and glanced at the young man beside him with a complex expression, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Lu Yin, you are already 29 years old this year, and you are still just a senior student in the martial arts school. I advise you to give up the path of being a warrior and find a stable job to marry and have children. Jiang Nian patted Lu Yin's shoulder and advised helplessly. Uncle Nian. The young man named Lu Yin had a somewhat gloomy expression and said with a bitter smile, I won't be distracted from dating until I get the title of martial artist. You. Jiang Nian glared at Lu Yin and said angrily, it's already 29 years old and you're not getting married. If anything unexpected happens to you, your old Lu family will be extinct. How can I explain this to your parents who died on the battlefield? Upon hearing this, Lu Yin's expression gradually dimmed. For a long time, he let out a deep sigh. In fact, Lu Yin was originally a time traveler. 29 years ago, I traveled to the earth that devoured the starry sky and became a baby still in its infancy. As a traveler, Lu Yin naturally has a lofty heart. At the age of 3, he set a small goal for himself to be a 16-year-old boxing warrior and a 20-year-old kicking war god. However, people have different constitutions. 29 years have passed in the blink of an eye, and Lu Yin is already a young man who is about to turn 3, but his strength has been stuck in the senior students of the martial arts school. In another year, at the age of 30, Lu Yin will not be eligible to come back to the martial arts school to study. The talent is so mediocre that I'm afraid I'll miss out on martial artists in this lifetime. Xiaolu, if you have figured it out, Uncle Nian, I will personally act as a matchmaker to help you find a good wife. With your conditions, aren't the girls in Yin District randomly chosen? Jiang Nian saw that Lu Yin was somewhat moved and quickly advised him earnestly beside him. Although both of Lu Yin's parents died at a young age, his own conditions were not poor. Not to mention the huge legacy left by his parents as a warrior, his slightly handsome face alone is enough to make a living by his face in this era. And Lu Yin's parents were also in the same martial arts team as Jiang Nian back then, which had a lifelong friendship. Over the years, Jiang Nian has always regarded Lu Yin as his own son. Do you really want to give up? Lu Yin clenched his fist, his nails seeming to be ingrained in his flesh, and a struggling expression flashed on his face. When Lu Yin crossed this realm in the beginning, he was full of energy and thought that as a traveler, he could at least become the strongest in the universe in the future. But who would have thought that 29 years later, Lu Yin could not even cross the most basic threshold for martial arts? So ridiculous. Uncle Nian. I understand now. Lu Yin suddenly let out a sigh, as if he had made an extremely important decision. He looked up and said, I will get married this year, and in the future, I will feel at ease to be an ordinary person and live a good life. In the face of cruel reality, Lu Yin finally let go of the obsession of being a traveler and willingly became an ordinary person. Seeing that Lu Yin finally thought about it under his persuasion, Jiang Nian's wrinkled old face couldn't help but flash a hint of sadness. Xiaolu, don't be fooled by the seemingly limitless scenery of martial artists, but how can outsiders know about the dangers among them? Otherwise, your parents wouldn't either. Jiang Nian's expression was somewhat dim, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he waved his hand and sighed, well, sometimes being an ordinary person and living a simple life may not be a good thing. A few days later. Yin District Extreme Martial Arts School. Uncle Nian, are you looking for me? Lu Yin pushed open the office door and swaggered in with a faint smile on his face. Lu Yin is the only young person who dares to be carefree in Jiang Nian's office in the entire Yin District Extreme Martial Arts School. Now, Lu Yin has completely abandoned the path of being a warrior and plans to devote all his energy to the great cause of spreading branches and leaves for the old Lu family. Without the invisible pressure on his body, Lu Yin became even more cheerful, with a faint smile on his face. Lu Yin, there's something good for you here. Jiang Nian's face was full of smiles as he handed a brown file bag to Lu Yin. Lu Yin picked up a file bag, which contained photos of some girls and relevant personal information. Lu Yin, if you're interested in any girl, just tell Uncle Jiang and I promise you'll hold a beautiful woman back. Jiang Nian said with a smile. Jiang Nian has been very busy these days, running around and collecting dozens of beautiful photos of his sister for Lu Yin. Su Yanran, 22 years old, currently pursuing a master's degree at Jiangnan University. Meng Kersen, 28 years old, a senior executive of a listed company. Zheng Linyue, at the age of 20, seems to be that somewhat famous singing star. Lu Yin picked up the photos and looked at them one by one. It can be said that Jiang Nian is indeed reliable. These girls need to have good looks and temperament one by one. It can be sweet, salty, and cute. Age range from 18 to 30 years old, with doctors and nurses, company executives, wealthy heirs, and university professors. Any girl placed outside is the goddess pursued by countless otaku men. Looking at these youthful, beautiful, and charming photos, Lu Yin found it difficult to make a decision in a short period of time. Can you take all these beautiful sisters and sisters? Lu Yin was muttering in his heart. Jiang Nian sat on the side, calmly sipping a sip of tea, his expression quite calm. In his opinion, although these girls seem impeccable in all aspects, marrying Lu Yin would be considered a high achievement. After all, these girls only come from ordinary families. And Lu Yin's parents are warriors. Lu Yin's uncle is the owner of the Extreme Martial Arts School in Yin District, Jiang Nian. Although Jiang Nian has been retired for some years, with his connections and status in the martial arts circle, even some generals and warriors have to give him face. And Lu Yin's financial situation, not to mention anything else, the inheritance left by Lu Yin's parents alone exceeds 1 billion Chinese coins. Among these girls, there is also a wealthy heiress who owns several listed companies with a market value of only around 1 billion yuan at most. 1 billion market value and 1 billion cash are two completely different concepts. Of course, money comes second. The true wealth left by Lu Yin's parents is still the network they have accumulated in the martial arts circle over the years. In this world, warriors are a transcendent class. It is extremely difficult for ordinary people to come into contact with warriors. Even some wealthy and high-ranking officials in society are nothing in the eyes of warriors. Jiang Nian, as the owner of the Extreme Martial Arts School in Yin District, is already a remarkable figure in this 1-acre plot of land. Every day, countless wealthy and officials try to curry favor with him. With Jiang Nian's identity and status, looking at these girls is just an ordinary family. Xiaolu, take your time picking, don't worry. Jiang Nian said with a smile, if you're not interested, Uncle Nian, I'll go and change another batch. Lu Yin nodded and casually flipped through the photos in his hand, but suddenly stopped, his expression changing slightly. This is a girl wearing a pink dress, with a slender figure, delicate face, and a light smile on her pretty face. She has a pair of cute dimples, which is very beautiful. The girl is obviously not very old, with a hint of greenness between her eyebrows, but her figure is very attractive, like a water-like peach, protruding forward and curling back. More importantly, the girl's first love with Lu Yin in her previous life seemed to have some resemblance. Uncle Nian, let's just leave her. Lu Yin suddenly looked up and said. She. Jiang Nian pondered, but his brow suddenly furrowed. This girl's name is Chen Shui, she is 21 years old this year. In terms of appearance, Chen Shui is considered outstanding among a group of high-quality girls, naturally deserving of Lu Yin. However, as far as Jiang Nian knows, Chen Shui's family is not very good. This girl's parents have both passed away, and she also has a sister who has been dragging her feet. She has been weak and sickly since childhood and is said to have been hospitalized. Jiang Nian frowned and said. Although, with Lu Yin's wealth, it seems unnecessary to value the woman's conditions. Chen Shui's parents have both passed away, and her younger sister has been ill since childhood, which is somewhat reminiscent of the heavenly demon fox star. Chinese people value tradition and have been somewhat superstitious about it since ancient times. It's okay, it's just her. Lu Yin waved his hand and said nonchalantly. Line. Seeing that Lu Yin had no objections, Jiang Nian nodded and said, tomorrow I will call out the girl. You two can spend some time together to cultivate your relationship. New book, try new themes, hope for support. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Bridal Chamber Candles, Here Comes the Golden Finger of the Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Bridal Chamber Candles, Here Comes the Golden Finger of the Master. Lu Yin met Chen Shui the next evening at a high-end restaurant in the central area of Yangzhou City. Compared to the photo, Chen Shui herself seems to be more beautiful, with fair and tender skin, and delicate light makeup on her face, like a white porcelain doll. When meeting for the first time, Chen Shui was very shy, giving people a small family jade temperament. A pair of black and white eyes, exuding spiritual energy, blinking and not daring to look directly at Lu Yin. Xiao Xue, the person that Aunt Wang introduced to you this time is Mr. Lu, the head of the Jiangguan family in Yin district. He is definitely a big shot. The opportunity has already been given to you, whether you can seize it or not depends on yourself. Chen Shui lowered her head and remembered the previous instructions from her neighbor, Aunt Wang, which made her feel a bit nervous and restrained. Under normal circumstances, such a character is not something she can come into contact with. Chen Shui secretly looked at Lu Yin with a pair of beautiful eyes, and when she saw that he was a handsome young man, she breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. It looks good too. Chen Shui knows many of the filth in the upper-class society. Some millionaires, who are already in their 50s or 60s, are surrounded by young girls one after another. Compared to the old men who couldn't even move their sticks, the young and strong Lu Yin was undoubtedly much better. Of course, in Chen Shui's heart, Lu Yin's worth of billions and the uncle of the ultimate martial arts school owner behind her are the real bonus points. Compared to Chen Shui's restraint, Lu Yin undoubtedly acted more casually, his gaze carefree as he scrutinized the seductive figure of the girl, with an aggressive look. Since she has given up becoming a warrior, Lu Yin, who has started to enjoy life, naturally will not compromise herself in terms of women. He doesn't have much demand for women, as long as he is obedient, sensible, and has big waves. Now it seems that Chen Shui already fits the latter very well. After a simple dinner, Lu Yin drove a black Aston Martin out of the parking lot, and Chen Shui sat in the passenger seat. Are you going to watch a movie? Lu Yin asked lightly. Chen Shui nodded without refusing. The two went to a nearby cinema. There aren't many people in the cinema, it's very dark inside and the sound system is very loud. When Lu Yin helped Chen Shui's slender waist out of the cinema, neither of them knew what the movie was actually about. It seems to be a complete mess. Do you usually play games? Lu Yin asked casually. Chen Shui felt a bit confused for a moment, but still nodded hesitantly. She doesn't play games much in her daily life, it's very boring. I know a 5-star hotel with fast internet speed. Do you want to give it a try? Lu Yin said seriously. Chen Shui was stunned for a moment, her pretty face blushed slightly, and gradually lowered her head, but she still didn't refuse. 2 months later, the two of them received their certificates. The wedding is very simple. Lu Yin and Chen Shui are both orphans, let alone relatives, so everything is simplified. That night, Lu Yin held his petite wife in his arms. Although they don't have much emotional foundation, after 2 months of being together, the two of them have also developed some inexplicable feelings. The dim pink light creates an ambiguous atmosphere. Shui, I want to eat ice cream now. Lu Yin lowered her head and breathed a gentle sigh beside Chen Shui's crystal-clear earlobes. Chen Shui lowered her head slightly, her pretty face blushed slightly, and she looked like she was picking at you. Compared to the girl who still had a hint of greenness 2 months ago, Chen Shui now seems even more beautiful. Her skin is white and red, her undulating and seductive figure carries a faint scent, like a ripe peach. Next, there was no sleep all night. The next morning, the sunlight shone on Chen Shui's face through the gaps in the curtains, and Lu Yin caressed her silky milk-like skin. She squinted her eyes slightly, seemingly still reminiscing about the beauty of last night. Starting from today, I, Lu Yin, also have a family. For some reason, Lu Yin's mentality seems to have undergone some changes from now on. It's like a drifting boat, suddenly finding a harbor to anchor. It seems that from this moment on, Lu Yin has gained a sense of belonging to this strange world. Ding! We have detected that the conditions are met and the system is officially activated. You and your wife had a night of communication and contributed to the family's development. Reward physical fitness +10, body method +1, marksmanship +1, what thing? Lu Yin, who was still feeling a bit sleepy, suddenly widened her eyes and a virtual interface appeared before her. Name: Lu Yin, Realm. Advanced Students, 762 to 900, Body Method. Basic Level, 44/100, Spear. Basic Level, 39/100, Spouse. Chen Shui, Descendants. None. At the same time, Lu Yin felt a warm heat flow surging throughout his body. Under the influence of this heat flow, my strength and speed seem to have slightly improved. Although this slight improvement was very weak, Lu Yin still truly felt it. System, golden finger, can we say? Lu Yin's eyes became increasingly bright, and he gradually began to speculate about the role of the system in his heart, Shui. Lu Yin looked at his little wife, who was still drowsy, with a fiery expression on her face. Chen Shui opened her eyes in a daze, not yet fully awake, with a cute and silly expression on her pretty face. Then came Chen Shui's fierce exclamation and the sound of her clothes tearing. After a period of time, you and your wife discuss the origin of life and contribute to the family's development. Reward physical fitness +10, body method +1, marksmanship +1 inch. The pleasant system prompt sounds again in my ears. Name: Lu Yin, Realm. Advanced Students, 772 out of 900, Body Method. Basic Level, 45/100, Spear. Basic Level, 40/100, Spouse. Chen Shui, Descendants. None, as expected. Seeing that his speculation was confirmed, Lu Yin's heart immediately surged with unparalleled excitement. At the same time, the already calm warrior's heart in Lu Yin's heart gradually revived. Improve physical fitness by 10 points at a time. Do him 3 times a day. It's already 30 o'clock in a day. Lu Yin's current physical fitness is still 128 points away from a Quasi warrior. That is to say, As long as you work hard, after 5 days, in terms of physical fitness, you will already be able to meet the standards of a Quasi warrior. Lu Yin thought to himself, feeling a little excited. More than 20 years, a full 20 years. Do you know how I've been a waste of wood for over 20 years? Lu Yin, what's wrong with you? The little wife, who had just experienced some ups and downs, still had a blush on her face, and she leaned against Lu Yinhui like a puddle of spring mud. However, when Chen Shui saw that Lu Yin's state seemed to be a bit off, she giggled foolishly and her blood boiled again, so she couldn't help but ask with concern. It's nothing. Lu Yin regained his senses, with a smile on his lips. However, he lowered his head and lightly kissed Chen Shuijie's white forehead, saying in a gentle tone, "Shui, it's really nice to meet you." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Martial Arts School. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Martial Arts School. Although I still want to try the system's functions again, after all, every time I can improve my physical fitness by 10 points, even if I do it 1,000 or 800 times a day, I won't get tired. But in the end, Lu Yin managed to suppress his desires. After all, Shui is just an ordinary person with average physical fitness, so she may not be able to withstand the turmoil. Anyway, the days ahead are long. Lu Yin has been waiting for 29 years and doesn't care about these 1 or 2 days. Let Shui continue to rest in bed, and Lu Yin put on his clothes and went downstairs to buy breakfast. 2 drawers of xiaolongbao, 2 bottles of fresh milk, 2 eggs, and a fresh cucumber are full of nutrition. Shui, I'll go out first. After everything was arranged, Lu Yinkai hurriedly left his house and drove to the Extreme Martial Arts School. The Extreme Martial Arts School is located in the busiest central area of Yin District, with every inch of land being as valuable as 2 high schools, resembling a huge monster perched on the ground. The main entrance of the martial arts school is wide enough for 10 cars to enter in parallel. Senior Brother Lu. Hello, Senior Brother Lu. On the lawn inside the martial arts school, groups of young students in groups of 3 or 5 stop to respectfully greet Lu Yin. Lu Yin joined the Extreme Martial Arts School at the age of 16, and now he is 20.9 years old, a full 13 years. The entire Extreme Martial Arts School, even for newcomers who have just arrived, there are very few who do not know Lu Yin. Lu Yin responded with a smile, but his footsteps became faster and faster. Finally, he walked into a huge silver-white building. This is the Senior Student Teaching Building. Inside the martial arts school, only senior students and high-level warriors are eligible to enter. Of course, to become a martial artist, most villas at home have their own practice rooms, and they rarely come to martial arts schools to practice. Good morning, Brother Lu. Lu Yin, it's been a long time since I saw you, kid. Zhang, you don't understand now. Lu Yin has just got married, so he can't stay at home with his little wife. Why bother exercising? As soon as you enter the Senior Student Teaching Building, many senior students warmly greet you. Away, Lao Zhang, Xiaoyang. Lu Yin also responded with a smile. Upon careful consideration, it was indeed a long time since I gave up becoming a martial artist. Brother Lu, are you coming to the martial arts school today to test your strength? The young man named Xiaoyang by Lu Yin smiled and said. Lu Yin nodded and walked over to the young man, only to see a bright number displayed on the punching test machine. 921 kilograms. Not bad, we have passed the 900 kilogram level. Lu Yin nodded slightly and then said, Yang Wu, you have enough strength, but your speed is still far behind. You should pay more attention in your daily life. Upon hearing this, Yang Wu smiled bitterly and said, Brother Lu, aren't we just not good at speed? Otherwise, I would have passed the Quasi warrior assessment a long time ago. Lu Yin couldn't say anything more when he saw this. According to the plot of the original work, Yang Wu, a tragic character, will fail 7 or 8 more times until he and Luo Feng undergo a quasi-warrior assessment to realize his dream of becoming a warrior. Lu Yin walked to the corner and opened a punching machine for himself. Although through the system, Lu Yin knew that her physical fitness had improved by 20 points. However, the display on the numerical value is ultimately too pale. Without personally testing it in front of the punching machine, Lu Yin cannot let go of this heart. Call out. Standing in front of the boxing test machine, Lu Yin took a deep breath, and his entire demeanor seemed to change suddenly. In just that moment, Lu Yin's gaze condensed into a knife, his whole body suddenly tensed up, his spine arched like a big bow, his legs exerting force to his waist and hips, and then passing through the spine segments, finally converging into his right fist. Bang! Lu Yin's right fist exploded like a shell, making a huge roar. 759 kilograms. It seems that it has really improved. Looking at the numbers displayed on the boxing test machine, Lu Yin's face showed a relieved smile. Brother Lu is fine. I haven't practiced for over 2 months, but instead I have made progress. Yang Wu leaned over with a surprised expression on his face. Although it may seem like a small improvement of only 20 kilograms. But Yang Wu knew that as a warrior, the younger one is, the faster their progress will be. The age range of 16 to 30 is the golden period for improving physical fitness and also the period of fastest progress. If there is no warrior before the age of 30, there is no hope in this life. And Lu Yin, who is already 29 years old this year, is considered an older player. Both in terms of potential and progress speed, he is very slow. Don't look at this progress of only 20 kilograms. On a regular basis, it may have been 3 or 4 months of hard training that Lu Yin achieved the desired effect. I can't compare to you. Lu Yin chuckled lightly and shook his head. Yang Wu is 6 years younger than Lu Yin, and he is 23 years old this year. In terms of strength, he has already reached the standard, but his speed is a bit lacking. Although according to the plot, Yang Wu will have to wait another 3 years to become a warrior, his potential is undoubtedly much stronger than that of Lu Yin. After testing his strength, he had achieved the purpose of his trip. Lu Yin felt delighted and even his walking steps drifted a bit. However, when Lu Yin walked to the entrance of the senior student teaching building, his footsteps suddenly stopped. That useless person from Lu Yin has come to the martial arts school again to waste public resources. It's really ridiculous. Those who haven't become martial arts yet at the age of 20.9 don't know what else to persist in. If I were as useless as him, I would have given up long ago. Do you think everyone has a museum owner like him? Lu Yin heard a whispering in his ear and furrowed his brow lightly. Over the years, Lu Yin's popularity at the extreme martial arts school in Yin district has been relatively good, whether it is a student from a poor background or a student from a wealthy and powerful family, they all get along well. After all, the relationship between Jiang Nian and Lu Yin is widely known in the martial arts circle of Yin district. No one wants to offend Lu Yin. However, the forest is big and there are all kinds of birds. Among so many senior students, there are always some who are at odds with Lu Yin, either jealous or simply unhappy. Perhaps on the surface, I dare not say much, but over time, there will always be some rumors behind my back. Perhaps mocking and ridiculing others can bring them some slight pleasure. Lu Yin shook his head and ignored the words, walking straight out. However, at this moment, Lu Yin seemed to gradually understand. In this world, only one's own strength can truly earn respect. The legacy of your parents, or the background behind you, may make people appear respectful to you on the surface, but what you think in your heart is unknown. All of this will never happen again when I become a warrior. Lu Yin walked out of the extreme martial arts school and looked at the energetic young faces on the lawn in 2s and 3s. For a moment, his thoughts were racing. In a blink of an eye, it has been almost 30 years since I arrived in this world. Time flies, youth no longer exists. Perhaps, without the system, Lu Yin would not have become a warrior in the end. Lu Yin will find Luo Feng, who has not yet grown up, hold on to his thighs in advance, and when Luo Feng rises in the future, any resources given to Lu Yin can become immortal. But now, everything seems unnecessary. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Quasi Warriors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Quasi Warriors. You and your wife discuss the path of life and receive rewards such as physical fitness +10, body method +1, and marksmanship +1. The warm morning sunshine poured into the room. Upon hearing the sound in his ear, Lu Yin's face showed a smile. After a week of system awakening, Lu Yin was in an extremely unreal sense of joy. No one expected that Lu Yin would waste decades in this world. From babbling babies to middle-aged people in their 30s. After completely accepting his fate, he opened his golden finger in such an absurd way. 30 years in the East and 30 years in the West, don't deceive middle age and poverty. Shuer, please rest first while I go make breakfast. Lu Yin lowered her head and kissed Chen Shuejie's white forehead, saying very gently. Chen Shui nodded obediently, with a countenance like a lotus blooming from clear water, exuding a national beauty in heavenly fragrance. Having been married for so many days, my husband seems to be treating me well too. There are some aspects. Chen Shui's pretty face turned slightly red, and her little head was filled with thoughts. Although she doesn't have much emotional foundation with Lu Yin, Chen Shui doesn't have any resistance in her heart. For Chen Shui, who comes from a poor family, being able to marry into a wealthy family is like flying up a branch and becoming a phoenix. She dare not expect too much more. Moreover, Lu Yin always takes good care of Chen Shui and shows meticulous care. This also made Chen Shui, who lost both her parents and was helpless, feel the warmth from her family. Ding! Your wife Chen Shui has a positive rating of +5. Lu Yin, who was busy in the kitchen, heard the sound of system prompts in his ear. This delighted Lu Yin and he quickly opened the system to check. Name. Chen Shui, identity. Wife, favorite rating. 75, realm. None, innate chi luck. 1 promise, 1,000 gold, promise is worth it. When the favorability level reaches the 80s generation, every slight increase in favorability is considered as 2 points. Lu Yin's gaze fell on the favorability column and gradually began to ponder. After half a month of exploration, Lu Yin gradually realized that favorability is a crucial attribute. There's nothing special about it until the favorability reaches 80. Once it reaches 80 or above, there will be a qualitative change, and even some new functions of the system will be activated. However, improving favorability is not easy, and as the favorability increases, the difficulty of improvement also increases. After getting married, Lu Yin and Chen Shui spent over a week together, caring and nurturing everything, and their favorability only increased by 10 points. As for innate chi luck, it is a relatively special and rare attribute. Not everyone will possess innate chi. Some have strong weather luck, while others have average weather luck and may even have negative effects. Some weather events have strict prerequisites, and it is also possible that the host may not have the opportunity to activate them for a lifetime. After a dozen minutes, Lu Yin turned off the fire and walked out of the kitchen with a bowl of steaming white porridge. The porridge is thick and dotted with some precious medicinal materials that are finely cut. The fragrance of rice, combined with the fragrance of medicine, wafts in the room, making people's appetite increase uncontrollably. Under the infection of RR virus, not only have animals around the world mutated, but some plants have also evolved, including some traditional Chinese medicine. This medicinal herb had medicinal properties before the Great Nirvana, and after being baptized by the RR virus, it has the effect of enhancing physical fitness. Not only can it improve the quality of the ordinary human body, but it also has some auxiliary effects on the cultivation of martial artists. In this era of nationwide martial arts practice, warriors are the most special class. Previously, various Chinese medicinal herbs with little presence were found to improve physical fitness, and their prices naturally skyrocketed, comparable to the weight of gold. Ordinary families naturally cannot afford to eat these medicinal herbs. Only with billions of dollars in wealth can Lu Yin add some medicinal herbs to his daily meals. Unfortunately, Lu Yin's talent is indescribable. Otherwise, just by consuming these precious medicinal herbs for a long time, his physical fitness would have reached the standard of a Quasi warrior. After finishing breakfast and handing over the heavy responsibility of washing dishes to Qin Shui, Lu Yin buried his head in the practice room. The layout of the Lu Yin family is just a very ordinary 3-bedroom, 2-living-room commercial house. Although with his wealth, he could easily buy a standalone villa like those warriors. However, sleeping at night only takes 3 feet, and a solar eclipse only takes 3 meals. Lu Yin is alone in this world. Living in that villa of over 300 square meters is too empty. I just bought a 3-bedroom, 2-living-room commercial house in the center of Yangzhou City for daily living. As for the practice room, it was actually just a fitness room transformed from a study, with only some equipment inside. But neither the walls nor the floors were reinforced with special materials. If Lu Yinzhen had let go of his exercise, he might have had to break through the ceiling of someone downstairs. My strength now is vastly different from a week ago. Lu Yin put on a loose training suit and felt the hidden power in his body, with a calm expression. With the help of the system, Lu Yin's strength has increased by 30.40 kilograms every day, which was a difficult effect to achieve in the previous 2 to 3 months. In addition to physical fitness, there has also been a significant improvement in shooting and body movements. With just one effort, you can achieve specialized marksmanship and advanced body techniques within 10 days. Lu Yin's eyes slightly froze. The strength of a warrior does not necessarily mean that the higher their physical fitness, the stronger their strength. If there are superb skills and body movements, one can often defeat the strong with one weakness and one enemy with many. And specialized marksmanship and advanced body techniques are the skills and body techniques that many veteran generals possess. Name: Lu Yin, Realm. Elementary Warrior, 1052/2000, Body Method. Basic Level, 73/100, Spear. Basic Level, 68/100, Spouse. Qin Shui, Descendants. None. Lu Yin looked at his attribute panel. A physical fitness of 900 points is the threshold for a Quasi warrior. And 1000 points is the threshold for entering the Elementary Warrior. That is to say, the current Lu Yin has fully met the requirements of martial artists in terms of physical fitness. Tomorrow is June 1st, and the martial arts school will conduct a Quasi warrior assessment. Lu Yin thought to herself, feeling a little excited. An ordinary person who wants to become a warrior must undergo 2 assessments in total. The first level is the assessment of Quasi warriors, which is scheduled on the first day of each month. The second assessment is the actual combat assessment of warriors, which is only conducted on March 1st and August 1st each year. Passing the Quasi warrior assessment is equivalent to being a warrior reserve, belonging to half a warrior. In the national civil system, the identity column will also be specifically marked as Quasi warrior, enjoying some privileges that only martial artists have. Lu Yin took a deep breath, with some anticipation in his heart. He has been waiting for this assessment for over a decade. The assessment of Quasi warriors is neither difficult nor difficult, as long as their physical fitness is qualified. Lu Yin's current physical fitness has exceeded the standard of a Quasi warrior by a large margin, and passing tomorrow's assessment is not difficult. New books for collection and follow. Up reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Assessment of Candidates. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 5. Assessment of Candidates. Early the next morning. The air was still filled with a thin morning mist, and Lu Yin had already risen from the gentle countryside. Today is the day for the assessment of Quasi warriors, and it's rare that Lu Yin didn't serve flowers, grass, water, and fertilize in the morning. After breakfast and bidding farewell to his petite wife, Lu Yin drove to the Extreme Guild Hall, located in the center of Yangzhou City. The entire city of Yangzhou has a total of 12 districts, each with an extreme martial arts school. And the headquarters of these 12 extreme martial arts schools in Yangzhou City is the Extreme Guild Hall. Is this Mingyue community? By the time Lu Yin arrived at his destination, it was already 7 or 8 o'clock, and the sun was spreading soft sunshine, soothing all living beings. Looking at the quiet community in front of him, Lu Yin's expression also became solemn. Mingyue community is the stronghold of the ultimate martial arts school warriors in Yangzhou City. The Extreme Guild Hall is also located in this community. Although Lu Yin has a special relationship with Jiang Nian, he also knows some martial artists from the Extreme Martial Arts School. However, in the vast majority of cases, Lu Yin is not eligible to enter this community. Sir, this is Mingyue community, please do not approach. If you cross this yellow line, we have the right to kill you. At the entrance of the community, there stood a row of heavily armed patrol personnel with serious faces, with their black guns aimed at Lu Yin. The guards are really strict. Lu Yin was somewhat surprised in her heart. The residents in Mingyue community are all warriors and their families. Warriors themselves possess powerful force and are not afraid of retaliation from their enemies. The families of the warriors are all ordinary people, so the defense of Mingyue community is extremely strict, and even the country will send troops for defense. I am here to conduct the Quasi warrior assessment. Lu Yin looked calm and said to several people. Oh. At this moment, an elderly man with gray hair walked out of the nearby guard room, holding a handheld computer and saying, "Bring your ID card and student ID to verify." Lu Yin nodded and handed over his ID card and student ID card. Ha! The old man took his ID card and student ID card, scanned them on his handheld computer, and then showed a surprised expression. "Young man, I see you look quite young. Why are you already 30 years old?" "Grandpa, you're mistaken. I'm only 29 years old this year," said Lu Yin with a calm expression. The old man with white hair glanced at Lu Yin and snorted softly. "At the age of 20.9, isn't the virtual age 30? Forget it, go ahead first. I hope you can pass today's assessment." The old man with white hair shook his head slightly, but didn't pay much attention. He turned around and let Lu Yin pass. In his opinion, Lu Yin is already 30 years old and his potential is quite limited. Even if you pass today's assessment by chance, whether you can become a warrior in the future is another question. Entering the Mingyue community, there are villas arranged in a neat and orderly manner, with rockeries, flowing water, forests, and grasslands, creating a quiet and comfortable environment. Lu Yin observed the surroundings all the way, and his expression appeared very calm. His parents are also martial artists. Although they don't belong to the Extreme Martial Arts School, the place they live in is not too bad compared to Mingyue community. "Sir, it's time for the Extreme Club." The security personnel leading the way took Lu Yin and returned the same way. Lu Yin nodded and walked into the lobby of the Extreme Club. Soon, a service staff member approached to inquire. "Sir, are you here to participate in the Quasi warrior assessment?" A sweet-looking girl wearing a black uniform smiled and said, "Please sit over there and wait until 10 o'clock in the morning to be assessed together with the others." Lu Yin nodded and walked towards the edge of the lobby. There is a small bar there, with some people sitting in groups of 3 or 2, probably all of them coming to participate in the Quasi warrior assessment. One of them was a young man wearing a brand name, with a hint of pride on his face. Lu Yin Duo glanced at him. In addition, there are 3 other people, all of whom are middle-aged people in their 30s and 40s. In fact, Lu Yin, who came to participate in the Quasi martial arts assessment at the age of 29, is not particularly old. It just seems too mediocre compared to the 18-year-old genius warriors like Luo Feng. Don't forget, this world is always dominated by mediocre people, and geniuses are only a very small minority. Many people persist until their 40s without giving up on becoming warriors. And the country also has regulations that it is no longer allowed to participate in the quasi-warrior assessment until after the age of 60. Brother Lu, why are you also here? Lu Yin found a seat to sit down and was closing his eyes to rest when he heard a cry of surprise coming from behind. I saw Yang Wu wearing casual clothes and strode up, looking incredulous. Why did you also come to participate in the quasi-warrior assessment? Yang Wu asked in shock. Others may not know, but Yang Wu is very clear that Lu Yin's strength is far from the standard of a quasi-warrior, but there is still a long way to go. A week ago, Lu Yin's strength was only over 700 kilograms. I have made some small progress in the past few days, so I plan to give it a try. Lu Yin said casually. It's really fake. Yang Wu sat next to Lu Yin, looking incredulous. You're lying to ghosts. Boost your strength by over 100 kilograms in a week. What medicine did you take to make such great progress? And Yang Wu's exclamation also caught the attention of several others around him. Young people, it's best to have a solid foundation before participating in the quasi-martial arts assessment. A bearded uncle glanced at Lu Yin and said in a deep voice. Yeah, I've seen many people like you, with a hint of luck in mind, hoping to explode on the spot in the assessment. Another middle-aged man couldn't help but say, even if you get lucky enough to pass the quasi-warrior assessment, if your physical fitness doesn't pass the actual combat assessment later on, it will be your own fault. Thank you both for reminding me. Lu Yin was not angry either, he just smiled and nodded. And Yang Wu also realized that he had caused too much commotion, so he awkwardly grabbed the back of his head. Brother Lu, the assessment for quasi-warriors is not a joke. If you act recklessly and get blacklisted by the martial arts school, even the head of the Jiang school may not be able to help you. Yang Wu pulled at Lu Yin's clothes and whispered, with a serious expression on his face. The assessment for prospective martial artists, although only senior students from martial arts schools can participate. However, if your physical fitness deviates too much from the standard deviation of a quasi-warrior, it will be considered as disrupting the assessment order. After all, you usually have over 89 kilograms of strength, so coming to participate in the quasi-warrior assessment can still be understood. If you are lucky during the assessment, you can cross the line. But you, with only over 700 kilograms of strength, are still here to participate in the quasi-warrior assessment. Aren't you here to entertain people? For such behavior, if it occurs more than 3 times, it will be blacklisted by the Extreme Martial Arts School and will not be allowed to conduct quasi-martial arts assessments in the future. Moreover, information between major forces is interconnected. If you are on the blacklist of the Extreme Martial Arts School, it is highly likely that other factions will not allow you to participate in the quasi-warrior assessment. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Shocking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Shocking. Meanwhile, inside the Extreme Club. In a super large martial arts training hall, more than 10 martial artists gathered together. These warriors are all the masters of various extreme martial arts schools in Yangzhou City, because today is the day for the assessment of quasi-warriors, so they will be in the Extreme Martial Arts Club. Among these people, there is a bald man who is very prominent. He is the owner of the Extreme Martial Arts School in Yin District, Jiang Nian. Lao Jiang, I heard that there is a person named Yang Wu in Yin District during this assessment. A burly man with a beard wearing black clothes said with a smile. There is such a person, but I estimate it's enough. Jiang Nian shook his head slowly and said, then Yang Wu is purely a power type. His strength is up to standard, but his speed is too poor. Lao Jiang, if we continue like this, no one in Yin District has passed the quasi-martial arts assessment for more than half a year. We, the museum owners, are now counting on these students to earn contribution points from the martial arts school. The bearded man shook his head and said. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yen couldn't help but show a helpless expression on his face. The owners of martial arts schools like them are all retired warriors. Not venturing into wilderness areas greatly reduces the ways to earn contribution points from martial arts schools. Only in their own extreme martial arts school, if students pass the Quasi martial arts assessment or the martial arts practical assessment, these school owners can receive contribution rewards. However, passing the assessment for Quasi warriors is not so easy, otherwise warriors would have been in trouble long ago. On average, only 5 or 6 people participate in the monthly assessment of Quasi warriors, with some having more than 7 or 8 and only 3 or 4 having fewer. Yangzhou City has a total of 12 districts, so it is naturally impossible for every extreme martial arts school to pass the assessment. And the Yin district where Jiang Yen is located is one of those very unlucky areas, where no students have passed the Quasi martial arts assessment for 7 or 8 months in a row. Sigh. I can only hope that Yang Wu will explode on the spot and pass the speed level during the assessment. Jiang Yen sighed and then glanced at the burly man with a beard, jokingly saying, Old Wang, don't you have 3 in Longshan district this time? Why don't you give me 1? Go, go. The bearded man glared and said, Who wouldn't know that your old Jiang is a famous tycoon in Yangzhou City? Do you lack this contribution value? At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing loose training clothes and long hair walked into the martial arts training hall with great strides. This middle-aged man with long hair is walking like a dragon or a tiger. He may not look strong, but he gives off a feeling of watching a fierce tiger or beast. Head. Chief Instructor. Seeing the middle-aged man with long hair approaching, these museum owners also remain silent. Because this person is the owner of the Extreme Guild Hall in Yangzhou City, Wu Tong. Meanwhile, Wu Tong is also a warrior-level warrior. I came quite early today. Wu Tong's expression was indifferent. He looked at the watch on his wrist and said calmly, It's only 2 or 3 minutes until 10 o'clock. Let them all come in. Yes. A man in sportswear nodded respectfully. A few minutes later, the man arrived at the martial arts training hall with 7 or 8 people, all of whom were participating in the Quasi martial arts assessment. Lu Yin is also among them. There are a total of 8 people, and there are quite a few this time. Wu Tong glanced at the crowd and nodded slightly. For those who come up with names, the first item is to test strength. Wu Tong looked at the table in his hand and said coldly. The first one, Lu Yin. Lu. What, Lu Yin? Jiang Yen, who had been standing behind Wu Tong all along, couldn't calm down when he heard Lu Yin's name. Jiang Yen quickly looked towards the crowd and indeed found that Lu Yin was standing there with a playful and smiling face. What the hell is this kid up to? I'm really not afraid of being blacklisted by the martial arts school. I thought the Extreme Martial Arts School was owned by your family. With just over 700 kilograms of strength, why join the excitement of the Quasi martial arts assessment? Jiang Yen glared fiercely at Lu Yin, feeling both shock and anger in his heart. Why, Jiang Yen, do you know Lu Yin? Wu Tong noticed Jiang Yen's abnormality and turned his head, saying with some confusion. That. Chief Instructor. Jiang Yen said with a stiff face, his expression somewhat awkward. This student is from our Yin district, and he may still have some strength. Bang. Jiang Yen was thinking about how to help Lu Yin break free, but before he could finish speaking, he heard a loud noise in his ear, followed by the beeping of an alarm. Wu Tong and Jiang Yen both turned their heads in confusion. I saw Lu Yinjing standing in front of a fist strength testing instrument, with a calm expression. A huge red number is displayed on the screen of the instrument. 1089 kilograms, and the beeping alarm was also emitted by the fist strength testing instrument. What? Upon seeing this scene, Wu Tong showed a surprised expression on his face, ignoring Jiang Nian as he strode up with a meteor. Instruments like this used for assessing Quasi warriors will emit a warning sound once the test force exceeds 1,000 kilograms. And just now, Lu Yin's punch clearly exceeded this range. Lu Yin, was that punch you made just now? Wu Tong asked in surprise. Because when talking to Jiang Nian before, Wu Tong did not see Lu Yin punching, so he had to personally confirm. Yes. Lu Yin smiled and nodded. Wu Tong looked up at the group of people around him, and saw that their faces were also filled with extremely surprised expressions, so he nodded slightly. Not bad. Not bad. Wu Tong smiled and patted Lu Yin's shoulder. The assessment criteria for Quasi warriors require only 900 kilograms of strength. And 1,000 kilograms of strength is already enough to meet the standards of a warrior. In the regular assessment of Quasi warriors, only 1 out of 100 people may have a strength of over 1,000 kilograms. It can be seen that this Lu Yin must have a high talent in terms of strength. Wu Tong thought to himself that his gaze towards Lu Yin was also quite friendly. However, when he saw the age column of Lu Yin on the table, his smile suddenly decreased a bit. 29 years old. This age is a bit too old. Wu Tong frowned and shook his head. Unfortunately. What a pity. If Lu Yin were 10 years younger, he would be fully qualified to become a genius recruited by the extreme martial arts school. Can be 29 years old, it can only be said that talent is slightly better than ordinary people. Alright, you passed the strength assessment. Let's move on. Wu Tong's face returned to calm and he said calmly. By the way, Lao Jiang, what did you just say about this student's strength? Wu Tong turned around and glanced at Jiang Nian, who was still dumbfounded, and asked with some confusion. Oh, no, it's nothing. Jiang Nianzheng looked surprised until Wu Tong called him, then he regained his senses and quickly shook his head to deny it. What medicine did this kid take to improve so much in a week? Jiang Nian was extremely shocked in his heart. Looking in the direction of the crowd, he found that Lu Yin was also looking at him, giving him a reassuring look. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Body Method. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Body Method, the second one, Yang Tong. When Lu Yin returned to the crowd, Wu Tong called out the second name. Quickly, a tall young man emerged from the crowd. His gaze was sharp, dressed in expensive designer clothing, and he looked like a wealthy child at first glance. Yang Tong had a proud expression on his face. When he looked at Lu Yin and others, he looked a bit arrogant, but only slightly restrained when facing Wu Tong. Wu Tong glanced at the information card in his hand, showing a surprised expression and said, Kid, are you from the HR Alliance? Yang Tong nodded slightly and said calmly, Jiangnan City, Yang family. Yang family. Is it the Yang family of the 12 major domestic families in the HR Alliance? Everyone around showed a surprised expression on their faces, looking at Yang Tong's gaze with a hint of envy. The Yang family, even for some martial artists, is a formidable creature that cannot be provoked. On the contrary, Wu Tong laughed and touched his chin, saying, it's really interesting. People from your HR Alliance have also come to our extreme martial arts school for Quasi martial arts assessment. However, this is not particularly unusual in China. Forces like these family forms often do not just put eggs in one basket. Although the Yang family is one of the 12 major families of the HR Alliance in China, it does not prevent some talented warriors from joining the extreme martial arts school, Thunderbolt martial arts school, or the military. For this kind of behavior, all major forces are just turning a blind eye. Alright, you start the assessment. Wu Tong casually said. Yang Tong nodded and strode to the front of the punch testing machine. He hardly exerted any force and punched forward. Bang! With a loud bang. 1335 kg. Amazing. Another one weighing over 1,000 kilograms. Truly worthy of being a family member. Everyone present had their eyes fixed on Yang Tong, their faces filled with shock. Just in shock, those middle-aged people in their 30s felt a bit uneasy in their hearts. They practice martial arts diligently every day, and after decades of hard work, they are qualified to participate in the Quasi martial arts assessment. But now, they are easily left behind by the children of these families. People, it's like this, you have to accept your fate. A man in his 40s shook his head and said with some emotion. The path of warriors depends on their talents, resources, and background. Ultimately, it's all about fate. Even middle-aged people like them, who are already very old, would not become warriors and ultimately only become bodyguards or thugs of a large family like the Yang family. Some people are already born in Rome. Not bad, you're only 20 years old this year. Even with the support of your family, it's pretty good to be able to do this step. It's a seedling. Wu Tong couldn't help but nod and say. On the contrary, Lu Yin stood behind the crowd, watching this scene with a calm expression and unchanged shock, as if an old monk had settled down. In his opinion, whether Yang Tong is a family member, a poor family member, a talented individual, or just a superficial figure has nothing to do with him. Lu Yin only needs to become stronger bit by bit and step out of his path as a martial artist. Quickly, the 6 people below also completed their boxing tests, and no one failed. However, with Yang Tong's Ryu in front, others performed mediocrely. Here is the speed test. Follow the opposite order as before. Wu Tong walked over to the speed testing instrument and turned on the machine. The speed test was also conducted very quickly, but in 5 or 6 minutes, everyone completed the test. Lu Yin's score is 28.9 meters per second, much higher than the passing line. On the contrary, Yang Wu only ran at a speed of 24.1 meters per second and did not pass the Quasi-warrior assessment. Damn it, it's really unlucky, it's almost there. After seeing his grades, Yang Wu shook his head somewhat helplessly. It's okay, go back and practice again, come back next time. Lu Yin patted Yang Wu's shoulder and comforted him on the side. Of course, in Lu Yin's heart, he knew that Yang Wu might fail many times in terms of speed. Okay. Brother Lu, please work hard. Yang Wu laughed and said, after passing the assessment, you will treat us to dinner. Alright, let's all come with me. Wu Tong glanced at everyone and then turned to go to the neuroreaction testing room. This is a room of 100 square meters, very spacious. In the center of the room was a valuable-looking instrument, and at the front of the instrument, there were 6 Gatling machine guns shooting out one by one. However, these holes were much more numerous than Gatling machine guns, with dozens of holes. The first one, Zhang Tong. Wu Tong casually said a name. A middle-aged man in his 40s walked out, with a withered face and a clearly nervous expression on his face. Lu Yin glanced at him and saw that he was one of the 2 middle-aged people who had been talking to him at the small bar before. Having failed for so many years, I used to only break through the speed level at most. We're just one last step away now, we must make it through. Zhang Tong clenched his fist with a hint of anticipation and nervousness in his eyes. Come here. Wu Tong pointed to a circle with a diameter of 6 meters in front of the testing machine. As soon as the switch is turned on, the edge of the circle with a diameter of 3.6 meters immediately emitted a hazy red light upwards. For a moment, the tester inside the circle seemed to be surrounded by a hazy red veil. Remember, no matter what, you cannot leave the circle, otherwise it will be judged as a failure. Wu Tong glanced at the middle-aged man and said calmly. Okay. Zhang Tong took a deep breath and his gaze gradually calmed down. Start. Wu Tong shouted loudly and pressed the red button on the instrument. Quickly, the huge machine began to spin rapidly, with dozens of muzzles emitting red lights. These red lights have varying speeds and their flight paths are not parallel, which is very disorganized. The withered middle-aged man's eyes were fixed on the front, his body constantly dodging from side to side, letting those red bullets pass by. Time passes by minute by second. Stop. Wu Tong pressed the pause button, causing the machine to slow down and finally come to a complete stop. Within 60 seconds, hit 60 times without touching the red light. Wu Tong glanced at the screen and smiled, saying, "I'm lucky, I just passed the assessment by brushing the line." Yes. The middle-aged man in his 40s couldn't help but let out a low growl and tightly clenched his fist when he heard these words. Congratulations, congratulations. Everyone else was also congratulating on the side. For the vast majority of ordinary people, passing the quasi-warrior assessment is an opportunity to change their destiny. Next, Yang Tong. Wu reported the name of the next person. Yang Tong entered the red circle and began to undergo neural response testing. Compared to the slightly clumsy posture of the middle-aged man in front of him, Yang Tong appeared more adept, even Wu Tong nodded uncontrollably on the side. Not bad, within 60 seconds, hit 29 times without touching the red light. Excellent. Wu Tong smiled and said. Soon, a person lined up to undergo a neural response test. However, the difficulty of this test is significantly higher than the previous two items, and there were two people who failed the assessment in a row. The last one, Lu Yin. Upon hearing the words of the chief instructor Wu Tong, everyone turned their attention to Lu Yin. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Introduction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Introduction. If we say that in this quasi-warrior assessment, the two most powerful and talented individuals are definitely Yang Tong and Lu Yin. However, Yang Tong comes from a big family and has a wealth of resources provided by the family. And Lu Yin was just an ordinary person, which made the other assessors look at Lu Yin with a friendly look. Come on. Calm down and don't be nervous. The middle-aged man in his 40s patted Lu Yin's shoulder and said with a smile. Don't worry. Lu Yin smiled and nodded, walking into the red circle. Assessment begins. Wu Tong saw that Lu Yin was ready and pressed the red button directly. Quickly, the machine started spinning rapidly. Red rubber bullets are like shells, fast enough to form a line in the air. Whoosh! 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 Lu Yin's gaze remained calm, his mind calculating the flight path of the red light. His figure began to rapidly change, constantly dodging left and right, agile like a cat. I saw the red bullets rubbing against Lu Yin's clothes. It was about to be touched, but Lu Yin suddenly made an extremely subtle movement and accurately avoided it. Unlike other testers, the 6-meter diameter circle range is utilized to the extreme. Lu Yin only moved and transferred within a very small range. His body movements are like a precise surgical knife, without any errors. And those onlookers, seeing Lu Yin's constant evasive movements, their faces suddenly became surprised. Is this entering micro? No, it's just a little too hot. Wu Tong watched Lu Yin's movements with a slight murmur at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes became brighter and brighter. The subtle level evasion technique is a highly efficient technique. Generally speaking, only experienced generals and level warriors can fully grasp the essence of the micro-level body method. However, the micro-body method is highly efficient and equally dangerous, and no small mistake is allowed. Many beginners try to learn micro-level body methods, but the effect may not be as good as using normal body methods. Although Lu Yin's body movements have not yet fully reached the level of penetration, they are not far behind. TSK, this kind of body technique, if it weren't for a genius, wouldn't have reached this level without training in the wilderness for 10 or 20 years. This young man's body movements are actually much stronger than mine. The museum owners who were watching from the side all showed surprised expressions. The saying goes that laymen watched the excitement, while laymen watched the tricks. These museum owners, although already retired, are also warriors who have experienced life and death battles in the wilderness. They knew very well in their hearts how terrifying the body movements exhibited by Lu Yin were. Even some generals and warriors may not be able to master the advanced body techniques. Not to mention these museum owners, they are only high-level warriors at most, so it is naturally impossible for them to master the advanced level body techniques. How could Lu Yin's body movements be so strong? Yang Tong looked at Lu Yin, and the pride on his face had disappeared, replaced by an immense shock. Although he surpasses Lu Yin in terms of strength and speed, Yang Tong is very clear in his heart that if the two engage in a life and death battle, the outcome must be that Lu Yin will easily kill him. He has absolutely no chance of winning. This is the power of body techniques. Some martial artists with good body techniques can completely defeat the strong with weakness and one enemy with many. This Lu Yin is interesting. At this moment, Yang Tong's gaze towards Lu Yin gradually became more serious. Although for him, it's just a quasi-warrior assessment, it doesn't matter whether he's first or not. But he never imagined that in this small city of Yangzhou, someone could surpass him in the assessment of quasi-warriors. You should know, he is the most talented young generation of martial artists in the Yang family's 30 years. Whoosh! 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 In the red circle with a diameter of 6 meters, Lu Yin was fully focused on using his body movements, completely oblivious to the performance of others. Over the past few days, through daily hard work, Lu Yin's improvement has not only been reflected in his physical fitness, but also in his body and marksmanship. Nowadays, Lu Yin's body method has reached basic level 73/100. Although we haven't fully reached the level of advanced body techniques yet, the difference is not far. At least passing a simple quasi-warrior assessment is definitely not a problem. Quickly, 60 seconds will end. Within 60 seconds, hit 9 times without touching the red light. Excellent. Wu Tong looked at the results displayed on the screen, with a hint of shock in his tone, while also feeling an indescribable regret in his heart. Unfortunately. What a pity. Wu Tong thought to himself. If Lu Yin were 10 years younger, no, 5 years younger. With his innate talent in body techniques, he is fully qualified to be recruited in advance by Extreme Martial Arts School, and even to be recommended for further education in global basic training camps. Lu Yin. Wu Tong smiled and said, "Congratulations, you have passed the quasi-martial arts assessment. As long as you pass the practical assessment again, you can become a true warrior." Lu Yin nodded, with a slight smile on her face. "After so many years, I have finally taken this step and become a quasi-warrior. Alright, the 6 of you come with me. Now we will sign a practical assessment contract." Later, Wu Tong glanced at everyone and said, "The actual combat assessment for martial artists involves a real battle with monsters, and during the process, there may even be disabilities or even death. So, if you want to participate in practical assessments, you must first sign a waiver agreement." A few people followed Wu Tong towards the martial arts training hall, and someone handed over several paper contracts. Lu Yin glanced at it, and the content was very simple. It was probably due to disability and death, and the Extreme Martial Arts School was not responsible. "The contract has been signed, and it's time to show you the gene ability cultivation method. Wu Tong walked up to the big screen and operated the remote control, which displayed an article. Genetic Energy Cultivation Method. What is this thing? The middle-aged people in their 30s and 40s all had puzzled expressions on their faces. Only Yang Tong remained expressionless from beginning to end. Obviously, with his status, he already knew about the gene ability cultivation method. Quickly, Wu Tong introduced the importance of the gene ability cultivation method to several people. The reason why warriors are stronger than ordinary people is because their genes are even stronger. And by absorbing the original energy of genes, one can make their genetic evolution faster. Through the gene primitive cultivation method, warriors can absorb primordial energy from the universe. Wutong smiled and said, "Please take note of this article and try to cultivate it before the practical assessment begins. Believe me, once you succeed in cultivating your original genes, you will be able to appreciate the true beauty of it." Upon hearing this, Lu Yin and several others nodded solemnly, firmly memorizing the gene ability cultivation method. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Refusal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Refusal. After everything was explained, Lu Yin left the Extreme Guild Hall with a joyful mood. However, just as Lu Yin walked out of the guild gate, he was suddenly stopped from behind. "Brother Lu, please stay." Lu Yin stopped and turned to look, only to find a tall young man strode up. "Are you Yang Tong?" Lu Yin's face showed a puzzled expression. "I don't seem to have much intersection with this Yang Tong, do I?" "Brother Lu, have you ever considered which faction to join after becoming a warrior?" Yang Tong walked up and said with a smile on his face. At this point, Yang Tong's face was completely devoid of arrogance, and he had an equal conversation with Lu Yin. "Join the Extreme Martial Arts School." Lu Yin responded. "Join the martial arts school." Upon hearing this, Yang Tong just smiled and said, "Joining the martial arts school is really good. It's free and unrestricted. Moreover, the Extreme Martial Arts School is the world's largest martial arts school, on an equal footing with the 5 major powers, and is not lacking in both power and resources. However, Yang Tong paused for a moment, with a somewhat solemn expression on his face, and said, "Brother Lu, the martial arts school is good. But joining the martial arts school means going on an adventure in the wilderness, living the days of licking blood with a knife edge. With today, there is no tomorrow, and maybe one day the corpse will be exposed in the wilderness." Upon hearing this, Lu Yin's face showed a puzzled expression and said, "What do you mean?" "Haha." Yang Tong laughed a few times, patted Lu Yin's shoulder, and said, "I just wanted to ask if Brother Lu has any thoughts of joining our Yang family." "The Yang family?" Lu Yin's face showed a hint of contemplation. Seeing Lu Yin hesitating, Yang Tong smiled and said, "Although our Yang family is not as powerful as the Extreme Martial Arts School, it is also one of the 12 major families in the HR Alliance. Moreover, by joining our Yang family, martial artists no longer need to live a life of licking blood with their swords. Even the most ordinary third-class contract can earn an annual salary of 5 million Chinese coins. With your talent, Brother Lu, you are fully qualified to compete for a first-class contract with an annual salary of 15 million. Brother Lu, you are already 30 years old now. Even if you continue to struggle for more than a decade, you will only be a warrior-level warrior at most. You cannot enjoy the truly generous treatment of the martial arts school. It's better to join the family power. Of course, Brother Lu, if you have ambition and talent, once your family's contribution is sufficient, our Yang family can also obtain some precious treasures through the relationship of the HR Alliance to help you challenge the God of War level." Yang Tong said confidently, "With the size of my Yang family, although we cannot obtain treasures like dragon blood, there is no problem in obtaining a piece of jade. As long as you join my Yang family, the conditions are definitely not inferior to those of Extreme Martial Arts School or the military, it will only be better." Yang Tong looked at Lu Yin's gaze, with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Although he is the most talented among the younger generation of the Yang family, he is also the first-in-line heir of the family. However, this does not mean that he has no competitors in the family. If Yang Tong could recruit a highly talented warrior for his family, it would also be of great help in consolidating his family's position. "Brother Lu, how are you thinking?" Yang Tong smiled and said, "Sorry, I have no intention of joining the family power." Lu Yin shook his head and decisively refused. Joining the family power, although in terms of financial and other conditions, is much better. But in terms of heritage, it is absolutely impossible to match the power of extreme martial arts school. That's okay too. Yang Tong didn't get angry when Lu Yin refused. He handed over a business card and said with a smile, "Brother Lu, this is my business card. Feel free to contact me if you have anything in the future. Then please trouble Brother Yang." Lu Yin took the business card crossed by the golden border and smiled on his face. Leaving Mingyue community, Lu Yin drove back home and saw that it was not past noon. At home, Chen Shui had already prepared a sumptuous lunch, hoping for the stars, the moon, and the return of Lu Yin. "Lu Yin, did you pass the assessment?" Chen Shui's black and white eyes were shining brightly, and she asked eagerly. "That's for sure, it's a small idea." Lu Yin hugged Chen Shui's slender waist, sniffing the charming fragrance on her delicate wife, and said with great indulgence. "Disgusting." Chen Shui patted Lu Yin's dishonest hands and said, "Hurry up and have a meal. I specifically learned new dishes online today." "I won't eat, I'll eat you first," Lu Yin said with a smile. 1 hour later. "Shui, after I pass the martial arts assessment, we will move to Mingyue community and live in a big villa." After the clouds and rain, Lu Yin hugged Chen Shui's slender shoulder and smiled, saying, "Practical assessment. Wouldn't there be any danger?" Chen Shui lowered her head and asked anxiously. "Don't worry." Lu Yin smiled and said, "With my current strength, passing the practical assessment is very simple. Besides, Lu Yin still hasn't said a word. There is still 1 month left until the actual combat assessment, and this month, under the hard work of Lu Yin, his strength will undergo earth-shattering changes. However, when Lu Yin remembered what Yang Tong had said at the entrance of the Extreme Guild Hall, he couldn't help but fall into silence. Yang Tong is indeed right. Warriors are in a life-and-death battle in the wilderness area. Today has no tomorrow, and if one is not careful, they may fall. Every time we enter the wilderness, no one can guarantee that we will be 100% safe to return. Of course, Lu Yin wouldn't naively think that he was a traveler, so he wouldn't die. Moreover, Lu Yin is not alone now and has no worries. He now has a wife, a family, and friends. Never take risks lightly until you have a certain level of strength. Without being fully prepared, never put yourself in danger. Lu Yin thought to himself. Lu Yin is very afraid of death. Or rather, in this world, no one is afraid of death. Fear of death is why one strives to improve their strength as much as possible. Lu Yin comfortably hugged Chen Shui and lowered her head to take a look at her stunning appearance, with a hint of contemplation in her heart. According to the current progress, we can improve our physical fitness by 30 points per day. That is to say, 1 month later, Lu Yin's physical fitness can reach that of an intermediate warrior. After 3 months, one can be promoted to a senior warrior. After 7 months, one can reach the rank of primary general. The further you go, the slower the progress will be. If you are upgrading from a higher level warrior to a lower level warrior god, relying solely on the system may even take 3 years. Of course, this is in the case where Lu Yin does not use any natural resources or treasures, nor does he cultivate genetic abilities. However, in summary, it is still too slow. Lu Yin couldn't help but shake his head. From the most ordinary elementary warrior to the advanced god of war, it even takes 20 years to achieve. For ordinary warriors, being able to cultivate to a higher level of war god in 20 years is naturally a great thing. But for Lu Yin, who is familiar with the later plot, this cultivation speed is still too slow. Time waits for me. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Genius. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Genius on the late night of June 1st. After a series of ups and downs, the tired little wife has fallen into a deep sleep. Lu Yin, however, had no drowsiness and was sitting alone on the cold floor of the practice room, wearing a loose training suit. Although she passed the Quasi warrior assessment smoothly during the day, after a brief moment of joy, a sense of urgency also rose in Lu Yin's heart. He knew very well in his heart that in this world of the jungle, without strength, it would be difficult to protect everything he wanted to protect. Genetic energy. Lu Yin recalled the content of Gene Primitive Cultivation Method in his mind, and some text fragments came to mind. According to them, the first time practicing genetic energy is the greatest progress, and it is possible to increase strength by hundreds or even thousands of kilograms. Lu Yin thought to himself and followed the method recorded in the article to try to feel the energy in the universe. However, it is not easy to sense cosmic energy. You must first reach a state of unity between heaven and man, so that your mind is free from distractions. Some martial artists with weaker talents may spend a year and a half just sensing energy. Time passes by bit by bit. Lu Yin held a posture with 5 hearts facing the sky, her breathing gradually calmed down, and her mind became empty and bright. After an unknown amount of time, while Lu Yin was in a semi-dreamy and semi-awake state, he suddenly sensed a faint breath passing through his feet, palms, and baihui acupoints on his head, gradually flowing into his body at an extremely slow speed. This feeling is extremely vague and even difficult to describe in words. Is this the energy of the universe? Lu Yin slowly opened his eyes, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. At the same time, the feeling of sensing cosmic energy suddenly dissipated and disappeared. However, Lu Yin's heart was filled with immense joy. I didn't expect that the first time I felt the energy of the universe was successful, it didn't even reach an hour. Lu Yin thought with some disbelief. You should know that in the original work, it took Luo Feng 5 or 6 hours to successfully sense cosmic energy. Originally, Lu Yin thought that with his mediocre martial arts talent, it may take several months to sense cosmic energy. After all, it is clearly recorded in the Gene Ability Cultivation Method. The difficulty of sensing cosmic energy varies from person to person. People with good talents can sense it in a day, while those with weaker talents can spend a year and a half without any surprise. Can we say that I am actually a buried genius? Lu Yin's eyes lit up slightly. Thinking in his heart, Lu Yin quickly calmed down his emotions, and began to cultivate his genetic abilities. With the first time, it becomes much easier to sense the second time. Almost as natural as water, Lu Yin sensed the ubiquitous energy in the universe. A hint of cool air naturally entered Lu Yin's body along the soles of his feet, palms of his palms, and the baihui acupoint in his head, constantly changing throughout his body. Whether it's the surface skin, muscles, bones, or even every cell at a deeper level, they are undergoing a leap of life-like evolution. Lu Yin was immersed in this wonderful feeling, and every cell in his body greedily devoured cosmic energy, unable to even feel the passage of time. I don't know how long it has been. When Lu Yin opened his eyes again, he could already see a ray of fish belly white rising from the eastern sky outside the window. My improvement this night is incredibly tremendous. A hint of excitement flashed in Lu Yin's eyes. He didn't know how much strength he had improved during that night, but he had a vague premonition that this improvement would exceed his imagination. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and the martial arts school should have already opened. Lu Yin glanced at her phone and slowly got up. However, just as Lu Yin opened the door to the practice room, he heard a click. Subsequently, the door handle was taken down by Lu Yin from the door. The strength suddenly increased too much and I didn't adapt for a while. Lu Yin looked at the door handle in his hand, which had already been twisted, and couldn't seem to laugh or cry. However, it can also be seen from this that his improvement last night was indeed quite significant. Carefully opening the door, Lu Yin did not disturb Chen Shui, who was still asleep. The morning air carries a fresh scent, and there are not many people on the street yet. Lu Yin took a deep breath and felt that his whole body was much fresher. Brush. I saw Lu Yin standing in place, his leg muscles suddenly exerting force, and his whole body transformed into a black shadow like a cheetah, rushing out. Lu Yin ran with all her might, feeling the scenery on both sides rapidly regressing. His running speed has even far surpassed that of a car. Keeping running at high speed, a few minutes later, Lu Yin arrived at the entrance of the Extreme Martial Arts School in Yin District. Didi, welcome, Lu Yin, senior student. After flashing the advanced student ID on the machine, the access control will automatically open. Although I passed the Quasi warrior assessment yesterday, the citizen information will not be updated until a few days later. So, strictly speaking, Lu Yin is still just a senior student of a martial arts school. Good morning, senior brother Lu. Although it is 5 o'clock in the morning, some diligent students have already arrived at the martial arts school to practice early. In this era of nationwide martial arts practice, people have a fervent admiration for martial arts. Becoming a warrior can also change a person's destiny. 10,000 steps back. Even if one's talent is too poor, one cannot become a warrior. A senior martial arts student's treatment in society is definitely not bad. Looking for a security job casually, with an annual salary of 300,000 to 400,000 yuan is not a problem, it belongs entirely to the high-income group. And a college graduate only earns a few thousand yuan in salary. Greeting all the way, Lu Yin entered the senior student teaching building. However, this time, Lu Yin did not make any more stops on the 3rd floor, but went straight to the 4th floor. The 3rd floor is usually a place for senior students to train, and on the 4th layer, only warriors can enter. However, Lu Yin has now passed the Quasi warrior assessment, and the staff of the Extreme Martial Arts School also know him. There is no problem going to the 4th floor. It's Lu Yin. I heard you passed the Quasi martial arts assessment yesterday. Congratulations. There is a small room at the staircase on the 4th floor where an old man is on duty. When he saw Lu Yin, a smile appeared on his face. Good morning, Li Bo. Lu Yin also greeted with a smile. It's really not easy. Since you entered the martial arts school at the age of 16, I have watched you become stronger step by step. Now, more than a decade has passed, and you have finally become a Quasi warrior. Li Bo said with some emotion, as if recalling the lost time. Upon hearing this, Lu Yin slightly tugged at the corner of his mouth and quickly said, Uncle Li, my Quasi martial arts certificate hasn't been issued yet. Can I go in? It's okay, it's okay. Li Bo waved his hand indifferently and said, what a big deal, you just need to go in. Thank you very much, Uncle Li. Lu Yin nodded with a smile and strode into the martial arts training hall on the 4th floor. Compared to the 3rd floor, this place is brighter and more spacious, and there are very few martial artists who come to the martial arts school to practice, so there are usually few people on the 4th floor. At this moment, there was only one person on the 4th floor, Lu Yin. It's time to try my strength and see how much I improved yesterday. Lu Yin felt a little excited and walked quickly to the front of a boxing test machine. End of this chapter.